Thanks for downloading the Look Away Now podcast from BBC Radio 4. If you want to find out more, go to bbc.co.uk/Radio 4. But not until you've enjoyed Look Away Now.
Thank you very much indeed, and welcome to Look Away Now, the show that mixes sport and comedy, like Michael Owen signing for Manchester United. After a thrilling 5-set finish, Roger Federer beat Andy Roddick in the men's final at Wimbledon. The match was one of the most gruelling sessions ever seen on a Sunday, not counting, of course, the EastEnders omnibus. This weekend also saw the end of the Henley Royal Regatta, an essential date in the summer social diary. Basically, it's the perfect event for anyone who finds Wimbledon too relentlessly working class. Finally, at the Tour de France, cyclist Mark Cavendish became the first Briton to hold the green jersey for 2 days in a row. That's nothing. I wore the same pants for the whole of Euro 96. Well, today sees the long-awaited start of the England versus Australia Ashes series, one of the oldest and fiercest sporting rivalries. Only this programme's hatred of a question of sport comes close. One of the key Aussie players, fast bowler Brett Lee, isn't fit for the first test. It'll be a lesser match without him. Who could forget his valiant efforts at Edgbaston in 2005 or his seminal kung fu movies in the 1970s? Without Brett Lee, the current Australian cricket team contains more unfamiliar faces than the Australian football team, and that's saying something. So we thought we'd have a look through the team sheet and introduce you to some of the new members of the Australian squad.
Peter Siddle's first ball in Test cricket hit Indian batsman Gautam Gambhir on the head. Particularly embarrassing as they were playing South Africa at the time.
Shane Watson.
Shane Watson is one of only 2 members of the Australian cricket squad to hold down a day job, as well as playing for the national team. When not representing Australia, he sells rudely decorated cakes.
Andrew McDonald.
Andrew McDonald is actually Austrian and is in the Australian team through a clerical error.
Ben Hilfenhaus.
Ben Hilfenhaus changed his surname because of a bet. Surprisingly, he won the bet. He used to work as a builder before taking up professional cricket and still has a habit of not returning after lunch, leaving the job half done.
So it really was a Wimbledon fortnight like no other. Roger Federer won the men's title, the Williams sisters reached the women's final, and the British number 1 got knocked out in the semis. A Wimbledon like no other then, apart from almost all the other ones. The big question is what next for Roger Federer after he secured his historic 15th Grand Slam title? Well, I'm joined now by our Roger Federer correspondent, Lawrence Howarth. Lawrence, where does Roger go from here?
Yeah, well, Garry Federer is a man with the world at his feet. I think that goes without saying. But I suspect for the moment he'll be looking no further than the US Open and the chance to extend his record. Beyond that, though, I wouldn't be surprised if Federer started turning his attention to the doubles.
Really, very interesting. And who would his partner be?
Partner? No, Gary, I think he'll probably just use 2 rackets, like some Hindu god.
Right.
After that, I think Federer may be tempted to have a temporary sex change to go after the women's title and have a crack at the Williams sisters.
Well, we've all had that dream.
Yeah, and then I imagine he'll have the sex change reversed, but stop halfway so he can single-handedly claim the mixed doubles. These are the sort of challenges you need to take on when you're the best ever tennis players.
Oh, well, is he the best ever? That's the question that a lot of people are asking, Lawrence. We can never be certain how he'd have matched up against some of the greats, can we?
Can't we? Can't we? Can't we? I only ask because we totally can.
How so?
Because Federer's going to prove it once and for all. You see, Gary, when Roger humiliated the puny girl man Roddick in this year's Wimbledon final, he fell to his knees and wept, for there were no more tennis to conquer. And at that precise moment, he hatched a plan to bring back history's tennis greats and defeat them all, one by one.
And how does he intend to do that?
Voodoo.
And he told you this, did he?
Well, no, Gary, but it's written in his eyes.
So who, theoretically, would he be facing?
Well, all the obvious candidates, Borg, Laver, Henry VIII, John Tennis, the man who invented tennis.
So where do you see Roger, say, in 10 years' time?
Well, he's got a lot of options available to him, Gary, but I have a sneaking suspicion he may have a crack at destroying the moon.
What? Why? Why would you possibly think that?
Well, when I was going through his bins, I found a way.
Lawrence, I think you need to have a lie down.
Roger doesn't lie down.
Lawrence Howard, thank you very much indeed.
Ashley Cole looks up the line and finds Joe Cole, who cuts it back inside for Carlton Cole. And back to Cole. Dinks it through to Cole. Cole finds Cole. Passes to Cole. Cole to Cole. And now Cole. It's Cole. 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 Goal!
Musician Neil Hannon of Divine Comedy fame has released an album of cricket songs entitled The Duckworth-Lewis Method, named after the famously complicated mathematical system of adjusting rain-affected cricket matches. Pop music is so terribly commercial these days, isn't it? Anyway, this idiotic combination of music and sport reminded me of our music in sport correspondent, Richie Webb. Richie.
Thanks, Gary. This week, I have set myself the challenge of seeing how many other overly complicated sporting rules I can make easier to understand through the medium of catchy song.
So let's see how many you've managed to do. What have you got for us?
Well, first up, the obvious one. I bet every time you watch a football match, your wife asks this question, Gary.
Is it why are you watching the match in your pants again, darling?
Nearly. No, it's actually, what's offside? And I reckon, in song form, this rule is a lot clearer. A player, he is deemed to be in an offside position if when standing in the half belonging to the opposition, he is nearer to the goal line when his teammate kicks the ball with only one opposing team member to beat. That's all. Should the linesman judge he's interfering with the play, then he should raise his flag after a brief yet maddening delay. Of course, this prompts all the spectators sat behind him in the stands to leap about in disbelief and shout and swear and wave their hands. Offside! Offside! Don't mean to be unkind, but referee, are you flipping blind? The trouble is the crowd, they have a valid point to make, as television replays often show the official's mistake, because unless the linesman's blessed with independent moving eyes, then how on earth can he be looking into places at one time? So has that helped clarify things, Gary?
Well, Rich, hard for me to judge. Of course, I already know what offside is. What about the sports that I'm not familiar with?
Well, I mean, I've been working on this all week, Gary, so pick a sport with confusing rules. Just try me.
OK, what about kabaddi?
Try me again.
American football? Why don't you tell me what you've done?
Well, what about race walking, Gary?
That'll do.
Yeah, that whole are they walking, are they running thing, confusing. No one's clear on the exact ruling on it, or indeed the point. Don't lift your back foot off the ground till the front foot has touched it. A resulting loss of contact means you probably rushed it. It's a very fine line between running and walking, similar to the one between shouting and talking. And treading that line can be quite precarious. But watching them do it, though, is bloody hilarious.
Richie Webb, ladies and gentlemen. Richie Webb. So the first day's play of the first Ashes Test between England and Australia should be finishing as we speak. Well, I'm delighted to say that just a couple of hours ago, I managed to grab a quick word with England's star batsman, Kevin Peterson. Kevin, thanks for taking the time to speak to us.
Hi, Gary. It's Kevin. Hello, yes. Hi.
It's the tea interval at the moment. How's it been going so far?
Oh, it's fantastic, Gary. We are absolutely slaughtering the Aussies here. Seriously, I have eaten, way more tea than any of them.
Kevin, I was actually asking you about the cricket. How would you assess the day's play so far?
Do you know, I completely love cricket, Gary. It is my favourite game because I am really, really good at it. I also like badminton, bear baiting and kaplunk.
Right. So England won the toss this morning. How pleased were you about that, Kevin?
It was the best moment of my entire life by an absolute mile, Gary. I felt like there were angels cupping my balls. But then I saw a bee, and I just watched the bee for a bit, and I forgot about the toss, and everything was back to normal.
Now, in a way, you must have been waiting for this moment ever since that painful 5-0 loss in the last Ashes series over in Australia at the start of 2007.
I don't know what you're talking about, Gary. The last Ashes series was here in 2005, and we won.
But Kevin, you know perfectly...
La, 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 can't hear you. Kevin Peterson cannot hear you. La, la. Look, yes, Gary, this is a moment I have been looking forward to really hard for ages, and now it's finally here.
And how does it feel?
Dreadful, Gary.
Why?
Well, it's a bit like at Christmas, Gary. If you happen to see your present all wrapped up in your parents' wardrobe a few days beforehand, you'll spend hours fantasising that it's going to be like a Star Wars Scalextric water pistol trampoline or something. So when you actually open it, no matter what it is, you're disappointed. You start crying and you storm off to your bedroom telling your parents you hate them and you wish you'd never been born.
Well, I suppose we were all a bit like that as children.
As children?
Yeah, but how are you... how are you finding the pitch and the facilities down there in Cardiff?
Everything here is absolutely incredible, Gary, although I still don't really understand why we have to play this particular test match on neutral territory.
How do you mean?
Well, it's England versus Australia, Gary, and we're playing in Wales. It's neutral territory.
But Kevin, the team you play for is officially called the England and Wales cricket team.
What? I've spent all this time learning to be English, and now I've got to learn to be Welsh as well. What? Why did no one tell me? I hate you, Gary. I wish I'd never been born.
Kevin Peterson, thank you very much indeed.
OK, gotta go, bye.
And Roger Federer lifts the trophy aloft and kisses it. The efforts of 2 weeks distilled into the passion of one short kiss. Actually, quite a long kiss now. Match officials looking a bit embarrassed, to be honest. Not quite sure where to look. Oh, for goodness sake, get a room.
First MPs, now BBC executives. No, I'm not talking about cross-dressing at the weekend. It's the ongoing expenses scandal, and the latest group to have their dirty receipts aired in public are BBC sports presenters. Well, Naughty People correspondent Catherine Jakeways has sifted through the data for us. Catherine.
Yes, Gary. Now, these details are coming in thick and fast, and it all makes for shocking reading. For instance, in 1 year, Mark Lawrenson spent £45 on giant pencils from various gift shops, £850 on a party to celebrate Lee Dixon finishing Captain Corelli's mandolin, and £66 on 2 facial expressions, one of which he has returned. Ray Stubbs has claimed £63 towards a secret experiment he was conducting into why things happen. And it seems that Adrian Childs claimed £4,000 for a special cream that keeps his lips exactly the same colour as the rest of his face. Absolutely disgraceful. And the expenses from the BBC's recent coverage of Wimbledon are even worse.
Well, we should probably move on.
No, not so fast, Gary. Sue Barker and John Lloyd jointly claimed £1,800 for the upkeep of the model village they co-own. But it's your expenses, Gary, that really make the mind boggle.
Let's move on and turn
£20,000 on strawberries.
Oh, good Lord.
Can we expect your resignation, Gary?
Well, no, you can't, Catherine, and I'll tell you for why. The strawberries were a mistake. I accept that. I have an addiction, and I'm seeking help. As for the giant tennis racket-shaped maze in the grounds of my third home in Switzerland, I'll cut it down, I promise.
Actually, we didn't know about the maze.
Let's move on. Well, now, many of you at home will be familiar with Test Match Special from the way it takes over the Radio 4 long-wave frequency during the summer months and prevents you from listening to the Archers when you're on holiday in Brittany. So here at Look Away Now, we thought we'd assemble our own team of former cricketers, stick them in an outside broadcast van and get them to do some live commentary for us. Unfortunately, we couldn't afford to send them all the way to Cardiff, so instead we've sent them to cover a barbecue. Let's dip now into a bit of barbecue special with your commentary team of ex-Australian all-rounder Glenn Shane and the one-time Dorset captain STD de Glanville.
And whilst I take your point, Glenn, that life is indeed not sustainable on the planet Neptune, I do... Oh, and that burger is extremely wide, and Jeff from 2 doors down isn't tempted to have a go at it because it's probably still frozen in the middle. I do say I would rather set foot on Neptune than on the surface of the sun.
Yeah,
but what does it matter, STD? Either way, you're dead, mate.
Nevertheless, Glenn, I maintain that an icy demise on our solar system's most outlying... and the chef just lifts that sausage off the grill there. And there's no bun. So he puts it back on again. On our solar system's most outlying planet would be preferable to the fiery death you'd experience in the solar environs.
Yeah, look, mate, should we not be reading out some listener emails or something here?
And in much the same way, a barbecue that is too hot is in its own way worse than a barbecue that's not hot enough.
Yeah, getting back to the action for a second here, Clapper. You people in the Northern Hemisphere simply do not know how to throw a barbie. If this chef continues to leave the air vent on his cooker wide open like that, he's got no chance of retaining the ashes.
Now this could be interesting.
Oh, look out, here comes the big man.
Yeah, making his way out into the middle of the garden now is the distinctive figure of Fat John. And what a truly remarkable summer this massive glutton is having. In fact, I'm going to turn to our resident statistician, Phil Brindle, here. Phil, do you have Fat John's figures for the season so far?
I can get them.
Would you?
Fat John has feasted for a total of 844 minutes to date, STD. He's racked up 3 tons of crisps and was the first eatsman to reach 1,000 pasties this summer by a clear fortnight. He already has 4 ducks to his name this weekend alone, but interestingly, whenever onions and mustard have both been available together, he's ended up getting the runs.
Thanks very much for that, Phil. So, Glenn, what's the chef going to serve up here? I mean, he has such good variation, of course.
Well, we know it's going to be chicken first up, but we don't know if it'll be a wing or a leg.
Oh, and Fat John is appealing for leg before. Wing, and it's given! Oh, it's given! Oh.
Well, STD, for my money, that is a dreadful decision from the chef there.
Yeah, well, and already there's a bit of verbal from one of the other guests here. No! Up goes the finger!
This is outrageous. He's just hitting him round the face. What has boxing come to?
Well, now, many of us have dreamed of owning a football club. I know I have, almost as often as I've dreamt about my invisible spy plane crash landing at Subaka's house. But how can we be certain that people taking possession of our great clubs like Manchester United or Liverpool, or even our crap ones like Kidderminster or Chelsea, are to be trusted? Well, I'm joined now by FA spokesman Sir Keith Falk.
Hello, Gary.
Sir Keith, you're the man in charge with implementing the FA's fit and proper persons test for the suitability of potential owners.
That's right, Gary. I keep my ear pretty close to the ground in the search for wrong-uns, let me tell you.
So what form does the fit and proper persons test take?
Well, there are 2 main areas, fitness and properness. Fitness is pretty straightforward. I put all potential club owners through a fairly standard Bagger 5.
Bagger 5? What's that?
5-star jumps, 5 squat thrusts, a supported headstand, wall or partner, a forward roll, a backward roll, a full straight body push-up, and 12 bunny jumps to the tune of Match of the Day.
And what about properness?
Ah, well, that's where I really start to crack down hard. I had some chap in last week who came within a whisker of being allowed to buy Everton before he let his guard down and revealed that he was, in fact, an inanimate dummy made entirely of wood. Not a proper person at all.
So, tell me, under what criteria, then, would someone fail the test?
Well, if they were, say, imaginary. Or a Cylon. Or an animal in a suit. We've had that one before. For a long time, Tottenham Hotspurs was run by a grumpy bear called Sir Alan Sugar. That was, of course, before these new rules came into effect.
Look, aren't these rules of yours incredibly easy to meet? I mean, who could possibly fail the fit and proper persons test of yours? Who?
Father Christmas?
Father Christmas?
Both unfit and not real. He'd have to go.
What do you mean, not real?
Nothing.
Sir Keith, I have to say, all this will only confirm many people's view that the FA is guilty of gross negligence in this area.
Now, look, Gary, I'm not a complete fool. I put the kibosh on a fair few rapscallions in my time.
Like who?
Mike Ashley. I caught him.
But he's still chairman of Newcastle United.
Ah, yes, well, once I discovered he was actually a couple of children sat on each other's shoulders inside a fat suit, it was too late. Nobody would buy the club back off him.
Surely it would be more sensible, quite simply, to conduct these tests before the candidates buy the clubs and not after, which is what you're currently doing.
Well, we've had no trouble with the system thus far. Every candidate has turned out to be incredibly suited to the job of running a football club.
How so?
In that 100% of the candidates we've tested are already owners of football clubs. It makes them overqualified, if anything.
Sir Keith Falk, thank you very much indeed. Now, the Tour de France started last weekend. Not a lot of people know this, but the Tour de France is actually a French phrase meaning Tour of France. I got that off the internet. Well, now, while we've all heard of the famous yellow jersey and the less famous green jersey, many people don't realise the race is a bit like a really long Gap advert, in that there are many different types of jerseys up for grabs.
Tony Martin there, wearing the beige jersey for cycling most like a pensioner. And once he's finished his sandwiches, he'll be out of that lay-by like a bat out of hell.
Powering up this punishing incline comes Gregory Rast, followed closely by Carlos Sastre of Spain, both in matching blue jerseys awarded for sexiest screen kiss.
Breaking clear of the pack now is Bingen Fernandez in the lace jersey for prettiest bike.
So as Wiggins sprints towards the finish line, he's wearing the sky blue jersey for trying hard, the rainbow jersey for gay awareness, the red jersey for nicest smile, the orange jersey for looking most like Paul Weller, and yes, he's collapsed from heat stroke.
And as De Silva crosses the line after a gruelling 26 miles, will anyone have the heart to tell him this was only a half marathon?
Well, this week sees the start of one of the most horrifying sports events in the calendar. No, I'm not talking about the heavyweight beach volleyball tournament, but the running of the bulls in Pamplona. Well, I'm joined on the phone by someone hoping to make a big impact over the next 10 days. Please welcome Fernando del Toro.
Hello, Gary.
Fernando, first of all, what made you take up then bull running?
I am a bull.
Is this the first year you've been involved in the bull running then?
Yes, and I plan to make a real spectacle. When people think of the great moments in Spanish sporting history, I want to be up there. Fernando Alonso taking the Formula One title at 24. Fernando Torres scoring the winning goal in the Euro 2008 final. And me, Fernando the Bull, charging a drunk man into a shop window.
But, I mean, bull running is considered very dangerous, isn't it?
Of course. I'm expecting to pick up a few knocks, Gary. It's a contact sport. Squishing Americans takes more effort than it used to. But I will be back next year to prove I am the greatest Spanish sports bull ever.
You do know what happens to the bulls after the event?
I presume they get a cold shower, then off into town to celebrate, something like that?
No, they kill them.
What?
Well, the bulls enter the ring and then they're killed by the matadors.
Even if I win?
Yes.
Oh, well, there is always a first time for everything. Hooves crossed there, Gary.
That seems very optimistic.
What, more optimistic than you were about Andy Murray?
A fair point, Fernando the Bull. Thank you very much. Kids these days are all high on drugs. They should bring back national service. That Mark Lawrenson talks a lot of sense. Well, if you're the kind of idiot who says things like this, you're probably the kind of idiot who calls the Look Away Now rant line.
Right, hello. I've just spent 600 quid on a brand new plasma TV because I thought there was something wrong with my old one. And it turns out Sue Barker really is that colour.
Isn't it about time the Summer and Winter Olympics should put aside their differences and we can just have an Autumn Olympics?
Yeah, hi there. Graham Manu here. I heard your sketch claiming that the Australian squad are a bunch of anonymous nobodies, but let me tell you... What? Really? Sorry, I'm just being told that I'm actually Ben Hilfenhaus.
There's a rather unusual sporting event taking place this very evening at Kempton Park Racecourse. For the first time ever, a horse race will be run to the accompaniment of live classical music, provided by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. Well, our La-di-da correspondent, Catherine Jakeways, is at Kempton. Catherine?
Thanks, Gary. Well, the idea of this evening's event is to increase the popularity of horse racing by introducing classical music into the mix.
And what sort of music are they actually going to be playing, Catherine?
Well, Gary, they're playing the William Tell Overture by Rossini, or, to a man of your age and learning, the theme tune to The Lone Ranger.
Yes. I remember Tonto Kemosabe. I mean, it seems a strange ploy, Catherine. Classical music itself, it's hardly the most popular thing in the world. Couldn't they have booked the Sugar Babes?
That's your answer to everything, Gary. No, there's just a feeling that classical music and horse racing go well together.
Well, Catherine, thank you very much indeed. Now, this particular cultural exchange is by no means a one-way street, as we can find out now by joining our music correspondent, Richie Webb, who I think he's just made his way to the Royal Albert Hall. Richie?
And you join us here, Gary, just as we're getting to the good bit of Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. And just before the cannons join in, and I never thought I'd say this at the Royal Albert Hall, but here come the horses! Oh, Gary! The horses are all away together, and they're approaching the edge of the dress circle now, scattering astonished-looking classical music fans as they go. Some of them scurrying away in fear, others refusing to scurry away in fear until at least the end of the movement. They know the rules. Oh, and it's the cannons. Oh, and these horses do not like the cannons one bit as they cut a swathe now through the brass section. And if there's one thing worse than being trampled by a horse, it's being trampled by several terrified horses whilst trying to protect a priceless antique trombone. And you have to say, what a truly terrible idea this was. This is horrible, Gary. This is absolutely dreadful. Oh, the equestrianism. And now the horses seem to be turning away from the stage area and, in fact, coming towards me. Right, this is actually for Gary. I need some help here. They're heading right to me. Oh, no, horses.
And that's just about it. Coming up next week, we'll be celebrating a hatful of wins for UK athletes, but don't get too excited. It's only the UK Athletic Championships. And we'll be finding out just how corrupt horse racing has become by talking to the winner of next year's Grand National. Good night.
Look Away Now was presented by Garry Richardson with Lawrence Howarth, Dave Lamb, Richie Webb, Miles Jupp, Peter Davison and Catherine Jakeways. It was written by the cast: Danielle Ward, Humphrey Carr, David Reed, Gareth Gwynn, John Luke Roberts and James Sherwood. With additional material by Colin Birch, Matthew Morton, Ben Sleep, Richard Ward and Andrew Douglas. The music was by Richie Webb. Look Away Now was produced by Ben Walker. If you've enjoyed the Look Away Now podcast, you may also enjoy the Sports Week podcast, a roundup of the week's sporting issues with Garry Richardson over on 5 Live. You'll find information about this and other podcasts from BBC Radio's 4 and 5 Live at bbc.co.uk/podcasts.